Terminator franchise is undoubtedly one of the most popular sci-fi series of all time, and it has introduced us to a world of androids. T-1000 is undoubtedly one of the best creations that has ever been introduced in the franchise, and it also appeared as the main villain in Terminator 2 Judgment Day movie. T-1000 is a shape-shifting android created by artificial intelligence known as Skynet, and this android has a number of awesome physical features. Today, we will explore the T-1000's anatomy in detail and tell you all about its capabilities and powers. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you, and let's begin. How was the T-1000 created, and what is it made up of? The T-1000 was essentially created by the rogue, self-aware AI known as Skynet, who served as the franchise's main villain. Skynet's intention was to fight against the human resistance, and it created the T-1000, also known as T2 or Terminator 2. The T-1000 was made of Memetic Polyalloy and could shapeshift into any form. Skynet created T-1000 and then sent it to the past to kill John Connor before he grew up and became the leader of the human resistance. In Terminator 2, the T-1000's default appearance was portrayed by Robert Patrick. The movie's writer James Cameron stated that he initially intended to use the T-800s in the film, but later decided to go with an advanced model known as the T-1000s. He sought Billy Idol to play T-1000, but Idol could not play this role due to a serious accident. Eventually, Cameron hoped to cast the other actors, such as Blackie Lawless or Michael Biehn, and he finally cast Robert Patrick to play T-1000. Cameron wanted the T-1000 to act as a foil to the T-800, played by Arnold Schwarzenegger, and Robert Patrick underwent a lot of training to appear as an android. He had to learn how to fire a pistol without flinching or showing any emotion, and he also had to learn how to run or move without showing any signs of exhaustion. In order to make the T-1000 appear realistic, the creators used CGI to manipulate and recreate the images of the actor. They also used advanced puppets and prosthetic effects to give the T-1000 a realistic appearance. An insight into T-1000's incredible shape-shifting abilities. The T-1000's body was made out of a Memetic Polyalloy, which was kind of an artificial liquid metal. This polyalloy allowed the T-1000 to shape its body in any particular form, thereby taking the appearance of any other subject. They could also change the shape of just one body part, and this was typically seen when they transformed their limbs into weapons such as knives or blades. The Memetic Polyalloy also allowed the T-1000 to replicate the form of any person and object that was similar in size. Initially, all T-1000's infiltrators were given a default humanoid shape that allowed them to blend in with the population. This default form helped reduce the energy required to constantly shapeshift into other forms, but it also posed some limitations when they tried to shapeshift into another being. This meant that they could only shapeshift into a person or an object with a similar size and weight. It could shapeshift into anything just by touching it, but it did not have the same characteristics or chemical compositions as the original object. In Terminator 2 Judgment Day, the T-1000 took the form of John Connor's foster mother, Janelle Voight. It first took the form of a police officer to approach Janelle at her home, then killed her before taking her appearance to get close to John. The T-1000 later took the form of a security guard at the Pescadero State Hospital, and it later even took the form of Sarah Connor in order to trick John. Memetic Polyalloy also had some other advantages. T-1000's brain was made of a liquid molecular substance known as Memetic Polyalloy. This unique brain allowed the T-1000 to have an incredible memory and highly advanced capabilities. It could also process humor and had the ability to make its own decisions respective of what Skynet wanted. Skynet was aware of the fact that the T-1000 could become dangerous, which is why it had decided against creating this android in huge numbers. Eventually, the Memetic Polyalloy was the cause of the T-1001 to go rogue due to its self-awareness. The Memetic Polyalloy was quite a powerful substance, and it also enhanced the sensory abilities of this Terminator. Is the T-1000 a weapon in itself? The T-1000 also did not have any additional weapons that were issued to it because it essentially had the ability to create its own weapons. It could create knives, swords, or any such weapons out of its limbs just by changing the shape of the solid metal. While it could not create complex weapons such as explosives or guns, the T-1000 was certainly a weapon in itself as it could create or conceal sharp blades. It typically melted a section of its limbs into liquid metal shape, then reconfiguring it to serve as a weapon. Besides converting limbs to serve as a weapon, the T-1000 could throw these blades at its opponents with enough force to impale them and severely injure them. It also had the ability to perform certain martial arts routines, which served as an advantage during combat. How durable is the T-1000? The T-1000 was amorphous in nature, which served as a disadvantage when it was shot or targeted with firearms. It could easily be incapacitated by using firearms or any metal weapons to knock it down, and the T-800 once even used a shotgun to fire at it. Terminator 2 Judgment Day saw many fights between the T-1000 and a reprogrammed T-800, who tried to defeat the former by using shotguns to blast its arm off or even getting into physical fights with it. In one such fight, the T-1000 overpowered the T-800 and even threw it through a glass window. The T-800 once used a grenade launcher to stop the T-1000, then resorted to using an assault rifle when the grenade did not work. However, the T-1000 always bounced back and did not suffer any permanent damage as a result of the T-800's attacks until it used liquid nitrogen to immobilize the T-1000. The T-1000 was certainly more skilled at hand-to-hand combat than the T-800, and it once even trapped the T-800 in a gear machine. The T-1000 was also caught in the middle of explosions on many occasions, and it suffered various degrees of damage as a result. However, it appears to have healed from these damages due to its regenerative abilities. The T-1000 often faced humans such as Sarah Connor, Kyle Reese, and Detective O'Brien, who usually tried to destroy it by using rifles or shotguns. While the T-1000 mostly suffered no damage as a result of these attacks, it did suffer damage when Kyle aimed a grenade launcher at its fuel tank. Furthermore, the T-1000's Memetic Polyalloy skin was vulnerable to acid. It was easily destroyed when Sarah shot a few containers filled with hydrochloric acid that dripped all over the T-1000 and annihilated it. What is the secret behind the insane regenerative abilities of T-1000? Since the T-1000 could reconfigure its body parts by turning them into liquid metal and then reshaping them, it could heal from any injuries. However, the time taken to regenerate a particular body part depended on the damage suffered. In one such scenario, the T-1000 suffered from a grenade attack, and this left the android out of action for a while. It is also possible for a T-1000 to suffer permanent damage if one used dangerous plasma weapons on it. The T-1000's body parts could find each other and reform even if they were physically separated from each other. It was an intelligent creature that could locate any loose pieces that were separated from its body. Can the T-1000 time travel? The T-1000 could travel through time through a device known as the Time Displacement Equipment, also known as the TDE. The TDE could transport any being that was made of memetic polyalloy and living tissue. While the T-1000 was made of memetic polyalloy, it used a synthetic bioelectric field to mimic living tissue for a short period of time. It is suggested that the T-1000 briefly simulated the structure of living cells to be able to use the TDE. Furthermore, Skynet enabled the T-1000 to grow a layer of synthetic flesh around it, serving as a cocoon that enabled it to travel across time. As soon as the T-1000 finished its journey, it could tear through the cocoon and get rid of the synthetic flesh around it. However, no such cocoon was seen in the franchise when the T-1000 traveled through time. It was suggested that Skynet may have sent the T-1000 prototype back in time without the cocoon, or that it may have had burnt off during the time of displacement procedure. Furthermore, the film's visual effects editor also stated that showing these creatures shed a layer of skin while traveling across time would have been confusing. In any case, the T-1000 could use the TDE and travel through time by mimicking the bioelectric field that is typically generated by living beings. Why do extreme temperatures make T-1000 vulnerable? The T-1000 is amorphous in nature, and exposure to extreme temperatures weakens this android to a great extent. Situations such as being immersed in liquid nitrogen or even liquid steel can immobilize its body or even destroy it in extreme cases. Exposure to both intense heat and cold have the same effect on its body. Also, in low temperatures such as negative 196 degrees Celsius can freeze it to a point where it starts glitching. However, freezing a T-1000 would not destroy it in the same way that being exposed to heat would destroy its body. Any temperature over 1,535 degrees Celsius could physically change the T-1000's molecular structure and completely destroy it. In less extreme scenarios, the T-1000 might become temporarily disabled if it were to be caught in a fire or explosion.
Hasta la vista, baby.
How can T-1000 be destroyed? In Terminator 2 Judgment Day, Skynet set T-1000 to the past to kill John Connor as a child to prevent him from growing up and leading the human resistance. As the movie took its course, the human resistance reprogrammed a T-800 and then sent it back in time to ensure that the T-1000 did not get John. The T-800 often stepped in and protected John from the T-1000 at a shopping mall, and John's mother, Sarah Connor, also noticed the T-800's efforts to protect her son. Sarah later learned that a microprocessor developed by Miles Dyson would help Skynet's creation in the future. Sarah, John, and the T-800 confronted Dyson at this lab, and their interaction ended with them setting up explosives in the lab. The police also arrived at the scene when Dyson detonated the explosives, and the police fatally shot him. As Dyson died, the trio consisting of Sarah, John, and T-800 escaped the place, but the T-1000 cornered them in a steel mill. Sarah and John parted ways while the T-800 and T-1000 confronted each other. After briefly getting rid of the T-800, the T-1000 shapeshifted into Sarah to corner John and kill him, but Sarah showed up at the scene at the nick of time. The T-800 also came back to life and then pushed the T-1000 into a container filled with molten steel. The high temperature of the steel caused the T-1000 to disintegrate, and the T-800 declared that it had been destroyed. In this manner, the T-1000 was quite a powerful creation, but it could be easily destroyed if it was exposed to extreme heat. Conclusion. To sum it up, the T-1000 is an incredibly cool piece of technology, and it has established itself as one of the best antagonists in the series. With its endless powers and regenerative abilities, the T-1000 has stirred up quite a lot of trouble in the Terminator franchise, and is certainly a fan favorite. And if you like our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks, everyone.